We continue now at the top of Daf 60a Daf and Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 60a. The Gemara continues a statement of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, "Velistom, when it comes to sealing it up, la'alter have a chazaka." That's considered a chazaka immediately. She'ein adam asay shesosmim oro b'fanav v'shosek, because the person is not going to allow them to seal off, to close up the light that he has and be quiet. And therefore, if he is quiet, it shows that he is giving permission. And the Rashbam explains, "Velistom im hichzik bechalon gimel shanim b'chatzar hashutfin." Let's say somebody has a chazaka with a certain window for 3 years in a courtyard of partners, ubach avero v'sasmo, and then his friend comes along and essentially seals up that window. Shabana kosel connecto, he builds a wall right up next to the window. He's blocking out the light. V'hu shasak, and the person is quiet. La'alter have a chazaka. In that case, it's going to be a chazaka immediately. Lozeh hasosim, for this person who closed it up, he's considered to have a chazaka. He's allowed to close it up. Shelo yiftach or chaveiro ela b'reshu. So now, if the friend wants to open up again to have this window, he needs to have his permission. V'chezkas gimel shanim shayachalona pasuach, and this chezkas gimel shanim, the chazaka for 3 years where he had this open window, ain't a klum. It's nothing now. Me'achar sheshasak kishasas mozeh, since he was silent when this person sealed it up. Shein adam asay shesosmin oro b'fanav v'shosek. A person doesn't just allow them to seal up his source of light and he's quiet. Umidashasak, and from the fact that he was quiet, oduye odile de shalokadin hechsak meikar, he's essentially admitting that what he originally made, that original chazaka that he made, was shalokadin. It was really unjust. He wasn't allowed to do it. He's admitting to that, and that's why it's an immediate chazaka for this person that's sealing it up. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Mishnah said, "Lokach bayis b'chotzer acheres." Let's say a person buys a house in a neighboring chotzer. Lo yiftachenu l'chotzer hashutfin. He can't then open it up. That it now has an entryway into this other chotzer that he has in partnership. Essentially, adding a house, adding traffic from this house to that chotzer is not allowed. And the Gemara says, "My time, what's the reason?" Mibnei shamar ba'alei masaderech, because again he increases the traffic into the chotzer. That's something that is bad for the people of the chotzer. And the Gemara continues, "Ema seifa." Well, let's look at the end of the Mishnah. It says, "El imratza bona es hacheder lifnim." If he wants, he can build a room lifnimi beso on the inside of his house. Ubona aliyah al gabe beso, and he's allowed to build an upper floor to his house as long as it doesn't have a direct entryway into the chotzer. But the Gemara asks, "V'halom marba olav haderech." Isn't he over there also? Isn't there an increase in traffic? If there's now a second floor where you have new residents that you didn't have before, so you're still increasing the traffic. Why is that suddenly allowed? And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna says, "Mai cheder shachilko b'shnayim." What does it mean, a new room? It just means he took an existing room and divided it in two. He wasn't adding any space. Umay aliyah, what does it mean that he added an upper floor? Apsoy, it just means to say, again, he divided his current space, so now it's 2 floors instead of 1. Let's say it was a high ceiling, he was able to divide it to be 2 floors. That's what the Mishnah is saying, so in that situation, it is going to be allowed. And the Rashbam explains, "Shamar b'alei nasaderech shero b'nei adam yotzin v'nichnasin achsha b'chotzer yoser mibetchila." Now you have more people going in and out of the chotzer than before. V'lekot tznius kedemei kar. It's not as private as it used to be. V'halo mar b'alei nasaderech. And so the Gemara asks, well, in the case where you're just adding a room or you're adding a floor, isn't that the same thing? You're adding traffic. B'binyan aliyah zu shelo haysa sham kodem lachein. You now built an upper floor which wasn't there before. V'machnes l'socha diyurin. And now he's going to have new residents. Levad diyurin shababei. So besides the residents already in his house. Afa v'shakul and now, even though everybody is going in and out through the door of his house, aren't we still increasing the amount of traffic that's in the chotzer? And so then the Gemara answered again that what you're doing is you're splitting an existing room, and you're splitting it in half into 2 rooms, or you're splitting it into an upper and a lower floor, and that's okay. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, "Lo yiftach adam l'chotzer hashutfin." A person should not open into a chotzer that he owns in partnership. Pesach keneged Pesach. He shouldn't have one door directly opposite another door. V'chalon keneged chalon. He shouldn't have a window directly opposite another window. This is for reasons of sneas, again, to give people a measure of privacy. Hayakatan, let's say it's small, lo yasen gadol, he shouldn't make it big. Echad, if it's 1, lo yasen u'shnayim, he shouldn't make it 2. Aval posech ul rishas haravim, but he is allowed to open it when it's in rishas haravim. Pesach keneged Pesach, a door opposite a door. V'chalon keneged chalon, or a window opposite a window. Hayakatan osa gadol, if it's small, he could make it large. V'echad osa shnayim, and if it's 1, he can make it into 2. And the Rashbam explains, "Lo yiftach adam l'chotzer hashutfin afilo heicha diyesh lo chazaka." Even in a situation where the person has a chazaka, still he shouldn't set it up that it's chalon keneged chalon, that it's one window directly opposite another window. Elamashu yarchik zeh shelo keneged zeh. It should be a little bit distanced so that it's not exactly one opposite the other. V'tam misham tznius. The reason over here is it gives a measure of privacy. Kula masnis and mefarish b'gemara. The entire Mishnah will be explained in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, Mino hanimili, from where do we know these words? Meaning, how do you know that you can't have a window opposite another window, or a door opposite another door? Amar Rav Yochanan says, Diamar Krutz, because the pasuk says, Vayisa Bilam es Einov, Bilam lifted his eyes, Vayaris Yisrael shochin l'shvatav, he saw Klal Yisrael, they were dwelling according to its tribes. Ma ra, what did he see? Ra she'in pischei ohalayim mechuvanim zelazeh, he saw that the doors of their tents weren't exactly opposite one another. In other words, there was a measure of tznius, a measure of modesty. Amar, he said, Ru'in halalu shetishra aleim shchina, these people are fit that the shchina should rest upon them. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Hayakatan lo yasenu gadol, let's say he had a small door, he can't make it into a large door. And the Gemara says, Savar Rami Bar Chama lemema, Rami Bar Chama thought to say, Bar Dalid, let's say the door is 4 amos wide, Lo Leshavya Bar Tamanya, he can't make it 8 amos wide, to Kashakel Tamanya b'chatzar, because then he's taking a space of 8 amos in the chatzar. The idea over here is that every door, the person who has that door gets a space in front of it 4 by 4 amos. But let's say the area of the door is more than 4 amos wide. Let's say it's 8 amos wide, for example. So then you actually get an area of 8 amos by 4 amos because you get the entire width of the door. So he's increasing the amount of space that he has of ownership, so to speak, in the chutzner. So Rami Bar Chama thought to say that's what the Mishnah means. If it was 4 amos wide, now he's going to increase it to 8 amos wide. He's taking more space in the chutzner. That's when it's a problem. Avol Bar Tarti, but let's say he has a door that's 2 amos wide. Now every door, no matter how wide, it gets at least 4 by 4 amos. L'shavya Bar Arbos, so if he wants to make it 4 amos wide, so Shaper Dummy, so that should be fine because he's not really increasing. He's still going to get the same 4 by 4 amos in the chutzner. And the Gemara says, Amarle Rava said to him, Matzi Amarle, it's not true, because the people of the chutzner, they can say, even in a situation where he's not getting any more space, he's going from 2 to 4, let's say, still they can say to him, Bepischa Zutra Matzina Litzdanui Minach, when you had a small door, we were able to conceal ourselves from you, but Bepischa Rava, but when you have this large door, Lo Matzina, it's Danui Minach, we can't conceal ourselves from you, and therefore you can't expand it, even in a situation where you're going from 2 to 4. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Echad Lo Yasenu. Let's say he has 1 door, he can't convert that into 2 doors. So again, the Gemara says, Savi Rami Bar Chama lememar, Rami Bar Chama thought to say, Bar Arboy lo l'shavya trey b'nei tarti. Let's say he has a door that's 4 amos wide, he can't turn it into 2 doors that are each going to be 2 amos, because then again, no matter how big a door is, you get 4 by 4 amos, he's going to be increasing the amount of space he has in the chutzner. The kashakil tamnei b'chutzner. Now that it's 2 doors, he gets 4 by 4 amos for each one, he's going to get 8 amos in the chutzner. Aval Bar Tamne, but let's say you have a situation where it's already 8 amos wide, l'shavya b'nei arboy shaper dummy, to make it into 2 doors that are each 4 amos wide, that doesn't change anything, because he always got 8 amos by 4 amos into the chutzner. Now he's going to get 2 doors, each one's going to be 4 amos by 4 amos into the chutzner. There's no difference. Amarle Rava said back to him, he said back to Rami Bar Chama, it's not true, because Matzi Amarle, because the other person who is a partner in the chutzner can say to him, Bechad Pischa Matzina it's Tanui Minach, when you only had 1 door, so I was able to conceal myself from you. But when you have 2 doors, there's different. 1 door can be closed while another one is open. Lo matzina it's danui minach. It's more difficult for me to have privacy, to conceal myself from you. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Aval posech ul Rosh Hashanah Pesach keneged Pesach. He's allowed to open into Rosh Hashanah 1 door opposite another door. Why is that allowed? The Amar Le, because he can say to him sof, and at the end, nevertheless, habois it's danui mibnei Rosh Hashanah. You still need to conceal yourself from the people of the Rosh Hashanah, so you're still in a situation where there's no real privacy anyhow. So the fact that I'm opening a door, I'm creating a door opposite your door, is not really posing any additional problem. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Einos and Chalal Tachas Rosh Hashanah Boros Shichna Ma'oros. A person is not allowed to construct underneath the Rosh Hashanah, underneath the public domain, pits or ditches or caves. The idea is that if you have this pit that's constructed underneath the Rosh Hashanah, so it would be weakening the Rosh Hashanah for those who are walking on top on the street above. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Eliezer Matir Kadesh Gola Mahaleches Utu'unavon. And Rabbi Eliezer says it's fine as long as a wagon which is loaded with stones is able to go on that road of the Rosh Hashanah and it's not going to break. So that means it's strong enough, so there would be no problem to construct these pits or ditches or caves underneath the Rosh Hashanah. And the Mishnah continues, Ein Motzin Azizin Ugazus Taros Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to have from your property that there are projections or balconies that are in the airspace of Rosh Hashanah. El Imrotza, but if he does want to have these balconies or these projections, Konis L'Soch Shalom Motzi. So what he should do is he should draw back his house a little bit from the Rosh Hashanah. So now, when the balcony is sticking out, it's still within his property line. And the Mishnah continues, Lokach chotzer, let's say a person buys a chotzer, uba zizin uguzustros, and there already are these projections and these balconies, harezu bechazka, so then already there's a chazaka, we can presume that the person had permission, or essentially that the person was behind his property line. As the Rashbam explains, harezu bechazka, it has a chazaka, the ta'aninan lelokech, we make the claim on behalf of the buyer. Of Yomrim, we say, Amor konis l'soch shelo, we can say that this person probably drew back from his property line, and so therefore these projections and these balconies are fine. But let's say the seller, the one who actually put the projections there in the first place, he's going to need to bring witnesses that he drew back from his property line, or he'll have to make a claim that he was there enough years to establish a chazaka. He'll also be claiming that I drew back from the property line. That way would be a chazaka with a claim, with a taina. But a buyer doesn't need to claim anything. He just says, this is how I bought it. He doesn't need to figure out how it is that the seller was allowed to do this, to have these projections into the Rosh Hashanah. We make the claims on behalf of the heirs, and we make the claims on behalf of the buyers. And the Gemara says, Rabbanan, now what do the Rabbanan respond to Rabbi Eliezer? If it's indeed strong enough, if a person builds a cave, let's say, underneath the Rosh Hashanah, but the ceiling of that cave is strong enough that the Rosh Hashanah itself, the road itself, is strong enough to hold up, even if you have wagons that are full of stones, so why is that a problem? Why did the Rabbanan say that that's problematic? And the Gemara explains, the Rabbanan responds, Zimnin demifches v'lav adaite. Sometimes it can deteriorate, the person doesn't even realize. And so really there could be damage to the people of the Rosh Hashanah, even though they are not aware. And the Gemara continues, you're not allowed to have these projections and these balconies again unless you draw back from your property line. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Ami havale ziza dahavinafek lemavoa. Rabbi Ami, he had a projection, it was sticking out into the alleyway. Vahu Gavra, there was another person, Nami also, havale ziza dahavimapek l'Rosh Hashanah. He had a projection that was sticking into the Rosh Hashanah. Also lakami de Rabbi Ami, he came before Rabbi Ami. Amar le, Rabbi Ami said to him, Zil coats, you have to cut it down, you have to remove that projection. You're not allowed to have your items sticking into the Rosh Hashanah. Amar le, so he said back to him, V'amar nami islay. But he said, you also, the master also has the same thing. You also have a ziz that's sticking into the alley. And so Rabbi Ami responded, Didi mine lemavoa mapik. It's just sticking out into an alleyway. That's not a public thoroughfare. That's just an alley. B'nei mavoa mochlin gaboy. The people of the alley, they already waived the right. They forgave it, and they're allowing me to have it there, so it's not a problem. But yours, l'Rosh Hashanah mapik. It's sticking out into the public domain. Man mochel gabach. Who's going to be able to waive the right? You can't have the entire public. It's impossible to have the whole public waive that right, and therefore it needs to be removed. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Rabbi Yanai havali ilon hanotel Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Yanai had a tree that was overhanging into the Rosh Hashanah. Have hau gavri havali nami ilon hanotel Rosh Hashanah. There was another person who also had a tree that was overhanging into Rosh Hashanah. Also b'nei Rosh Hashanah have a kamak v'love. The people of Rosh Hashanah came and they were protesting about this tree that was overhanging into the Rosh Hashanah. So also lakami Rabbi Yanai. So this person came before Rabbi Yanai. Amar le, he said to him, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Amid Beis.